I want to kick it off today by asking everyone to introduce themselves and let you know who's here among our wonderful alumni panel. We have students that studied in a variety of locations around the globe, and they have a variety of majors. They're coming from a variety of universities, so I'm really excited to introduce them to you all today and to start answering your questions. So panelists, if I can open it up to you to share your name, the university that you attend, your major, and your CEA CAPA destination and program. So Paige, can I hand it over to you to kick us off?
Of course, I'd love to start off. So my name is Paige Shelley, and I go to the University of Missouri. I am a broadcast journalism major, and my internship was last summer in London.
Awesome, thank you, Paige. Emily, can I hand it over to you next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Emily Hung. I go to Ithaca College and I'm a television and digital media production and legal studies double major. And my CEA CAPA destination was San Jose, Costa Rica in the fall of 2022, so last semester.
Thanks, Emily. Viv, can I go to you next?
Yeah, hi, my name is Viv. I am at the University of Oklahoma. It's my home university. My major is psychology, art minor, and I was in Aix-en-Provence in France this past summer, so 2022.
Wonderful, thanks, Viv. Faith, can I hand it over to you now?
Hi everyone, my name is Faith Abatayo. I'm a biology major and I go to Marion University in Indianapolis, Indiana. I went to Buenos Aires, the CEA Medical Spanish Immersion Program.
Thanks, Faith. And last but certainly not least, Willem.
Hi there, I'm Willem. I go to Cal Poly University in San Luis Obispo, California. I'm an industrial engineering major with a minor in sales. And last fall, just this past quarter, I was in Madrid with CEA studying there.
Wonderful. Well, welcome panel. Welcome everyone who's here. But I'd love to start today. I'm going to hop into the question and answer box and start highlighting some of your questions. But first, I'd really love to kick it off by inviting our panelists to share a little bit more about the study and study abroad. And I'd love to open it up for you all to talk a little bit about your academics and or your internship abroad and share a little bit about what you specifically did, something meaningful you got out of it, and how you're carrying that forward with you either academically or professionally. So I'd love to open it up. Anyone who wants to dive in, also happy to put someone on the spot, but panelists, would anyone like to kick it off?
Sure, I can start.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, so I studied abroad in San Jose, Costa Rica, and while I didn't do any internships, I did a lot of things academically. So I took 4 Spanish classes starting from the beginning all the way through the intermediate level. And I also took cultural photography as like a little fun elective. So I went in with very little knowledge of Spanish. So I only knew like words and phrases here and there. But by the end of the 4 months that I was there, I could understand the news. I could hold a conversation with my host mom since I lived in a host family. And I also felt comfortable asking for things in Spanish when I was out in public. And personally for me, I think that my knowledge of Spanish grew immensely, and I felt like I got a very solid foundation of it, because now that I'm studying by myself back in the States, I'm understanding the lessons that I'm learning, and I feel motivated to continue studying because I know what I'm learning since I had a really good foundation. And I guess my hope after graduation is to work in journalism. And as a journalist, you tend to interact a lot with different types of communities. So one of my goals when I was in Costa Rica was to really build on my language skills and to learn Spanish, since I can speak English. I can also speak Mandarin fluently. So Spanish was kind of like my third language. And I can say that I know enough now to hold basic conversations and understand more complex topics when I'm listening. And I know that it'll only help me when I go out in the job field, because I'm currently still working on my skills as well and hoping to improve.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily. And I can see everyone now. Emily, we're working on getting you too. I'm so excited. There you are. Hi, everybody. Awesome. Well, that was such wonderful insight. Thank you, Emily. Who else can I pass it over to?
Yeah, so I can kind of go off of what Emily had said. So I come from a broadcast journalism background. And so all throughout college, I really envisioned working in a newsroom once I graduated. But this past summer, I really wanted to do something to kind of add to my skill set. I wanted to put myself into more of a challenging position. So I wanted to work more within strategic communication. And so I ended up interning at WePlay, which is a growth marketing agency that works with partnerships with different brands within sport and entertainment. And it was funny because a lot of their clients were actually American. So we worked with Howler Head, which is the official whiskey of the UFC. We had Utah Jazz, ESPN, Red Bull, Milwaukee Bucks, and Puma were big American clients for us. And so a lot of what I did was I was responsible for writing weekly newsletters for our company, creating documents over social media insights and trends, brainstorming marketing ideas and influencers for our various clients, and really trying to up their media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram. And so what I really enjoyed about my internship is that they really got me involved with these clients and really cared about my American perspective. So whenever we would write scripts for Dana White expressing different things about Howler Head, I would be able to go back in and look at the script and be like, okay, some of these words are more so like British sounding. Let's change them for the American audience because those are most of our clients anyway, are Americans. So just getting involved in that way. So yeah, I mean, my internship, I mean, it really, I learned how to adapt to working into a different environment. And I feel like I really learned a lot of unique skill sets that is going to, you know, put me aside from other candidates. And it's something great that I can add to my resume. So
That's wonderful. Thank you, Paige. Who else would like to jump in?
I can go next if that's okay. So I was studying at the University of Carlos III in Madrid. And so that's a pretty big, about 20,000 student public university in Spain, right outside of Madrid. And what I really liked about it, I was able to take major classes that kind of counted towards my engineering degree, as well as some of the more cultural classes that I really wanted to be able to participate in while abroad. And so I was taking 5 classes. 2 of them were for my major and kind of in the data science realm. And what was really cool about that is one of my professors was actually was working on research with Stanford professors at the time. And so it's not just the Spanish perspective, but he was able to kind of bring in both. And the class was I think 95% Spanish students with a couple other international students from Germany, Switzerland, and Ukraine. And so it was a really cool kind of blending of different people in this data science aspect or kind of realm. And so we were able to use real data, do some pretty cool projects in terms of Airbnb data, and kind of we all got to say like, oh, I've been here, I really like these Airbnbs, and then we got to see the data behind like, oh, the average nightly listing in this place is blank and the best time to go to that place is May or something like that. And so I thought that was really helpful. I was able to kind of use that in terms of my traveling on the weekends and say like, oh, these are places I'd never really even considered, but they have great Airbnbs for a great price. Like maybe we should check it out. Like I brought that back to my friends who I was studying with. And so that was a really fun time. And then I was also able to take the general education, cultural courses like a film studies class and Spanish art, where we got to go to museums within the city during class time. And our professor led those excursions and was able to kind of tell us and give us a guided tour of exactly what we were looking at and why it was culturally significant.
I love that. Thank you so much, Willem. Faith, can I pass it over to you? You did such an unusual program, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I went on the medical Spanish immersion program in Buenos Aires last summer, and I actually studied at the Universidad de Belgrano, which was like a university at that time. They also had students in class, so it was kind of interesting. Personally, we had 2 classes, and it was a health practicum class where you completed 60 hours of shadowing like Tuesdays to Thursdays, and usually it was about 4 or 5 hours in a day, and you were rotated in different specialties. So these were like not just related to working with doctors, but I got to do some laboratory experience. I learned about like stem cell research. I practiced micropipetting. I also got to shadow some radiologists, some nurses, physical therapy, and like I was able to see so many like surgeries, such as a double bypass heart surgery, which I just so happened to walk into. It wasn't part of one of the surgeries I was supposed to see that day, but I like came in and had a question and was like, oh, like, what are they doing? And surprisingly, in Argentina, they kind of just let a student in. You don't have to sign any forms. So I was able to see that. So that was pretty cool. I saw a lot of different patients of different backgrounds. The hospital that I was placed in was a neuro specialty kind of hospital. So most of the patients had some sort of disease or neurodegenerative disease. So that was really interesting, as it's really difficult to be able to see that as a pre-med. I feel like in the US, depending on how close you are to like the healthcare system or like to hospitals. So that was pretty cool. And then I also was able to take a medical Spanish course. It was pretty interesting because I got to learn really specific medical terminology that I was able to use and like see in the clinical setting after having learned it in class. So that was really helpful. And in terms of what I've gained from both my shadowing and my classes is that it's not only improved my Spanish speaking skills, but it kind of gave me the confidence to want to continue learning Spanish for future purposes in healthcare. Like right now, all the terminology that I've learned and the specific words and phrases that I've learned through both my shadowing and through the course has given me the confidence to become a medical Spanish translator. So doing the program has really given me the confidence to step out of my comfort zone and kind of be comfortable with not knowing all the words and still understanding that everything, it's always a learning process and like learning never stops. So with the program, that's what really helped me understand that it's okay to not know exactly what you're doing, not know, it's okay to be uncomfortable with the language barrier, but it really helped just being in that environment.
That's so wonderful, Faith. And we had a question specific to you and what you experienced as a STEM student. So thank you for diving into that. And I have so many questions, but I'm going to refrain because I want to keep all of our live questions coming in as well. So I want to pass it to Viv though, before we move on to some of the questions coming in live. Viv, can you tell us a little bit more about your experiences?
Yeah, so I did an internship this past summer, as well as a class. So the class I took was it was for sculptural, it was a sculptural class. And then I did an internship with someone who was working in their own gallery. So I got to kind of see the process and the behind the scenes of like how you would run a business like that, how you would like be able to keep up with it and interact with clients and everything. It was really interesting. I even got to do like hanging up paintings. There's very specific techniques that I had no idea about. So installation is something that like I've been able to look more into since I've gotten back and have become really interested in it. I think it was really, really cool to be able to like ask questions and like expand my knowledge on things I didn't even know about. So that was really meaningful. And it was also really important for me to, for learning languages. I think being immersed in that sort of environment where you're talking to people every day was super important. Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Thanks, Viv. And so many of you touched on some of the things that I want to kind of transition to next in terms of talking about local community and culture. And so I'm curious to know, kind of going off what you just said, Viv, and what some other folks said too, what's something specific that you, if anyone wants to chime in with something specific you did to connect with community and culture, or kind of what was really meaningful for you to get to know both the local city that you were in and more about the culture as well. Does anyone want to jump in and talk a little bit more about that?
So for me, CAPA had held a few like meetings for all of us students, interns that were in London. And so we met a lot of people through that. For instance, me and one of my other friends in the program, we met a theater professor. We weren't going to take any classes with him, but he was like, hey, if you guys are interested in seeing some theater performances, come with my class. We'll give you free tickets. That was a great way to just kind of immerse ourselves more into the culture. Theater is a big thing in London. But also I got fairly close with some of my coworkers. I kind of had a unique experience because a lot of my coworkers were closer to my age. So I'm 22. A lot of them were like 25, 24, 26, a little bit younger. And so they would always talk my head off about places to eat, things to do. I actually, which Heather, I told you about this, I got pretty close with one of my coworkers' wives who was like 24. And so we actually took a weekend trip to Dorset, England, where she's from, stayed with her parents, just got to learn about like how she grew up. And she's actually going to come and visit me next month. She's coming to the States. So just like listening to my coworkers and like really just putting myself out there really helped me like learn things that I should do and how I could get like more involved, I guess.
I love that. And Emily, can I actually put you on the spot, because we've had some conversations about this too. And I know you kind of alluded to this in talking about language learning and the things that you did to really immerse yourself in Costa Rica, but do you want to talk a little bit more about what was meaningful for you?
Yeah, so for me, the main way I was able to learn about like the culture of Costa Rica was through a homestay. So my program specifically had the option to do a homestay, or I think arrange independent living, but the majority of us all did homestays. And it was like a very new experience for me, but I absolutely loved it. And I learned so much through my host mom, such as, the food that they eat, since she would make us traditional Costa Rican meals every day. Also learned a lot about religion and also the importance of family. And I also did a lot of activities with my host family, such as every night we would always watch TV together, such as the local news. And that's how I got to learn so much about the country as a whole. And we would also watch movies as well, all in Spanish, by the way, like all of this was in Spanish. And at home also, the only language we spoke was Spanish too, because my host family didn't know any English. In addition, for lunches, my friends and I had to buy our own lunches and get food from the market. So we got to interact a lot with locals at the farmers market or in stores. And I would say if you have the option, living in a homestay is like one of the best ways to completely immerse yourself in another culture, because I think that there's just some aspects of culture that's not tangible, or that's hard for another person who hasn't encountered that culture before to like imagine. So by living in a homestay, you're able to really use all of your senses to experience that new culture. And for me, I loved it so much. And I still keep in touch with my host mom too, through WhatsApp.
That's so great. I see you nodding, Faith. Can I pass it over to you to expand on that?
Yes, so I can totally relate with Emily. I also stayed in a homestay as well, and I had a host mom. She was really amazing. Like Emily, my host mom and my host family, no one spoke English or understood English, so I was really forced to improve my Spanish speaking skills. And I feel like my host mom was really beneficial in kind of pushing me out of my comfort zone in terms of trying new things. So with food, she introduced me to lots of specific Argentinian dishes. She took me to numerous tango classes. I am not a great dancer, but she loves tango and Argentinians love tango. So she forced me to take some tango classes with her. It was super fun, something I'll never forget, just because most of the people who were taking the class were like older adults, like 60, 70 years old. So I was like the only young person there, like learning how to tango. And it was honestly pretty funny, like interacting with all the adults during the class and like learning how everyone speaks slightly different and like slightly different phrases or with accents. So that was pretty cool for me. And also just being able to, I took my courses at an actual university. And at that time, there were also some students who were also taking classes at that time. So during our like 2-hour long lunch breaks, I was able to eat lunch at the cafeteria, and there'd be like so many students. And as an American, and in Argentina, not many people speak English or can speak it in a way that is very fluent. So if they hear you speaking English, everyone's always like, who is that? Like, that's so cool. Like, I want to get to know more about your culture. They just ask like questions because they're really interested in you. So that was really helpful, just going to a university where there are actually students from Argentina. I was kind of forced to interact and get to know them as well, and share about my American culture and learn about their Argentinian culture as well.
That's so great. I want to keep this conversation going, but I'm going to bring in another element since I'm getting a number of questions related specifically to what's included in CEA CAPA programming and a little bit about the application process. So I want to see if we can dive into that a little bit. Maybe let's start, if someone wants to comment on a little bit about what it's like to apply to study abroad and prepare for studying abroad. We have some questions about deadlines, like how long does it take to hear back? I can answer that for you offline, but I'd just be curious if someone wants to dive in and talk a little bit about the pre-study abroad part, and then we can maybe dive in and talk about the on-site CEA CAPA experience too. So does anyone want to touch on the application process?
I think we talked about it a little bit, but I'm definitely kind of the type A person. I like to plan a lot and have things figured out as early as possible. And so there was parts where I was very on top of my applications, and I communicated with my school first and then CEA, and was able to apply early enough to get a flight credit, which was a great a help, just to kind of not have to worry about paying for the flight aspect of getting there. And then CEA was very responsive, and what I was really impressed by the whole program, CEA CAPA, sorry, but the whole program is so organized for you. They do a great job of kind of making sure that everything is covered, whether you need a packing list, you need information on where you're staying, that all happens, but it happens a little bit late. Like the hardy information is kind of a couple, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks out from when you start studying abroad. And that was almost like stressful to me, because I'm so ready to plan things and want to have everything dialed in. But so it was like, I just had to take a step back and realize that they had everything planned. And it was honestly really nice once I was able to take that step back and realize that there was just way less stress in the process than there would have been if I had to find exactly who I wanted to live with, or where I was staying, or what part of the city was a nice place to be in, where like how I was going to get accustomed to the culture. And so they had all that handled in the pre-arrival information, as well as the on-site orientation.
That's super helpful. Does anyone else want to chime in, either to kind of build off of what Willem was talking about, the application process, or to talk about on-site, whether that's CEA excursions or anything else you did to connect with the program on site? Open it up.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. For one, the process online, I'm not really a type A person myself, but I also thought that the online process was really nice and really well structured. So if you're not like someone who is totally on top of things all the time, it's also really good application process in general. And all of the CEA staff is like very on top of nice, kind about helping you find the information that you need. I think at one point I was trying to ask a question. I didn't really know who to reach out to. I reached out to someone that I had been talking to, and I was like, just like, hey, if you aren't the right person, just like, please push me in the right direction. I'm not sure who to reach out to. And they did, and they were super great about it. All the questions can be answered. For on-site things, yeah, I definitely would say go to the excursions that you can and that you are interested in, even if you're a little bit nervous about like meeting people or interacting with others or doing something that's out of your comfort zone, because there's a lot of good information there. I think for my program, there were a couple like talks where they just had like an extra lecture that you could go to. And those were super interesting. You just got in there. Some of them were in French. There were some that were in English, but even the French ones, when they're like going fast at the beginning, when you just get there, it's really good to have like creative information in the language. So even if you're nervous about that, I would say just do it. It's wonderful to yeah.
Thanks, Viv. Anyone else want to jump in?
One thing I will say that really helped me like through the process. So at Mizzou, our study abroad advisors made sure to set out a financial contract with us, and that being the predictions on everything that you're going to spend. So your plane tickets, your travel, what you're going to buy there as you buy souvenirs. And so really having that laid out for me was super essential because a lot of this trip I did pay for. So making sure that you have those finances, you know, in front of you is something really important to think about and to go over before you move forward with the actual process as well.
That's a great call out, and staff can help answer questions related to that and direct you back to the study abroad office, because it is so different for every campus and every student in terms of financial aid coming with you and applying to the program, things like the flight voucher that Willem mentioned earlier. So there's so many ways to help fund study abroad, and I know a ton of questions about that. So I'll just add that I always encourage bringing those questions to your admissions counselor and your site specialist and to your study abroad office as well. So thanks for touching on that, Paige.
I just wanted to also add in terms of like what's included in programs and like excursions.
Yes.
Like it was said earlier, it's really important, or it should be encouraged. You should be motivated to want to go on these excursions because you get to meet other students who are not necessarily on the same program that you are in, but they're also in a different CEA program or CAPA program. And that was really helpful for me just because like the first orientation we had, like the second day we arrived, I was able to meet, and like the friends that I made that day on that orientation were kind of like the friends that I had became really close to by the end of my trip. And coming in, I didn't know anyone, but going to the orientation and like going to all the setup activities or dinners or excursions that are planned out for us really helped me get closer with other students and get to know what their life was like while they were in the city and what their program was like as well.
That's great. Thanks, Faith. I have a couple more questions about housing, and I know we got to talk a lot about homestays, but does somebody that was either in a dorm or in student apartments want to chime in and share a little bit about that experience?
I was in a student apartment, and then I saw a couple of the dorms that were there, or yeah, dorm-ish areas. I think it was a dorm. Anyway, I thought it was a really good way to interact with other people in the program. I had some roommates, and that was like we were able to like interact through email before we got there and kind of get to know one another, exchange social medias, just so like we could feel comfortable while we were there. We had no issues, and it was really good way to like have a structure. You can come home and cook together. You can like decide like if you're going to go to this play that's going on or anything like that. The amenities were really good there, and it was a really comfortable building as well.
Thank you, Viv. I'm gonna feel free if anyone else wants to continue talking about housing, but it sort of ties into what Viv was touching on and what we were previously discussing too. But we have a question more specifically about how to meet locals. And I know a few ideas have surfaced throughout our conversations about connecting with colleagues and classmates and roommates, but does anyone want to touch on some additional things that you did to feel engaged with the local community and to meet other local individuals?
I also have a comment on this. I didn't find out about this until maybe about halfway through my time there, but I do know that some people, and I ended up doing it, it worked out for me. The Bumble friend, there's like an option to do friends there. So I signed up for that, and you can choose your languages. So you can do like the language of your location and the language that you know, and even another language. And you can read like why people are there. People will be like, oh, I'm traveling, I'll just be here a week. I made sure to go to the initial meeting with somebody in my program that I knew and trusted first. So I would recommend doing that. But I thought that was a really great way to meet people that were traveling through your location, that live in your location, that come to your location for a summer. and I ended up meeting like somebody who worked at a bakery near my apartment, and like got to interact with them there and ask questions about, you know, their life and everything like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's so great. And you're touching on another question that came through about safety while abroad, but I want to keep this one going. Does anyone else want to talk about local cultural engagement and some of the other great conversations we were having about on-site?
Yeah, so I also lived in the student apartment, and so I had 4 other roommates, so there's 5 of us. And I felt like I was so fortunate in not only where I was living, but the people I was living with. And so one of my roommates from Wisconsin, University of Madison, he actually had known someone previously who had studied abroad who lived and was a Madrid local, lived in Wisconsin for a year. And so we were able to meet up with him, meet a bunch of his friends from the city, and go out with them, get some dinner. And so that was an amazing opportunity to kind of be able to meet a bigger group of people that were there and were able to give us great recommendations, as well as classes being at a university that had not only international students, but the local Madrid, as well as other Spaniards that came from across the country to study there. And so one girl in my class gave me a 20 restaurant long list of places to check out. And so my roommates and I kind of made it a goal to see as many as we could by the end of the semester. And so that was a great way to not only engage with people in my class, but then take what I learned from them and apply it to like have a better time later on.
I love that. Circling back to this question about safety and study abroad, I know it's not one of the more fun topics, but it's such an important topic, and CEA CAPA takes health and safety very seriously. And we have a team to kind of help support with that as well, and make sure students feel prepared. Can you all talk about that a little bit, just in terms of the question specifically was, did you feel safe while abroad? And if there's anything that you want to highlight kind of on the health and safety side of study abroad.
Yeah, so I would say that I felt very safe when I was studying abroad. I think CEA, the on-site staff, did a really good job of telling us places that like we shouldn't go to that might be more dangerous, and also just telling us like where to keep our phones and like our wallets so that they wouldn't be stolen. And I didn't actually know very many instances of people getting their stuff stolen. And I think also my host mom was also really good. Like when we told her we would be going to a place, she'd give us advice on how to stay safe. And CEA did that as well. So like, for example, when we were planning our own weekend excursions, like not with CEA, we would always go to our CEA advisor on site. And he would give us suggestions on which places to stay at that he knew was like safe and that actually existed. And he would also tell us about like how to get there, which modes of transportation would be best, and just give us like general tips as well. Like I know when we did go on a CA trip, when we went to Panama, they gave us like a whole list of things that like we shouldn't do when we're there and to watch out for. So for example, one of them was don't let random people take photos of you, because that actually did happen to me in an Uber once. But for the most part, generally, like I felt very safe being there.
That's great. Keep thinking about that if anyone else wants to chime in. I love that this was a 2-part question. The second part was there ever a time in the beginning of study abroad that you didn't know how to accomplish something? And what did you do about it? I know that one's a thinker, but if anyone wants to chime in to continue with anything on that topic or health and safety, please do.
I'm going to go off more so on the health and safety part. So for us, whenever we would travel, CAPA had us go on their app and fill out where we were going, the dates, who we were going with, all of that information, so they knew if they couldn't get a hold of us, if something were to happen, they would know where we were, which was great. And then for me, like even just being a girl in general, I always would go places with my girlfriends. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't travel anywhere by myself. in general, I'm just too scared to. But even just like walking up the street to a restaurant, to groceries, I would always be with someone. But CAPA was sure to be, very like engaging and telling us like, hey, you need to fill this out when you go outside of these main areas so we know where you are.
That's great. Super helpful. Thanks, Paige.
I think in
just wanna add
general,
one-
oh, sorry, no, Emily. go
Sorry, no,
ahead.
you can go. You can go.
No, if you have a thought to finish, definitely.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I wanted to say one more thing about the health aspect. It's that if you have any sort of like medical or health issues, it's really important to communicate that with the CEA staff, both in the US and on site. For example, if you have like allergies or something like that, so that they don't pair you with, for example, if you're doing a homestay, they don't pair you with a homestay that can't accommodate you. And I would say it's also important, like when you eat out as well, to make sure that the food you're eating is safe for you. And CA also, I think, does a good job with making sure to get you help when you need it. So for example, for me, I did end up having an allergic reaction when I was in Costa Rica, but CA did a really good job of getting me to the hospital and doing the insurance forms and everything like that. So they were really there for me like every step of the way.
That's great. And you touch on something that I think is just helpful and important to highlight. As part of the CEA CAPA application process, we do encourage students to let us know about anything medically that they have going on, anything that we need to help and support in terms of accommodations. That's part of the application process so that we can learn how best to support you while you're abroad. So be certain to be in touch, whether it's medically or any other form of accommodation. That's something we want to hear about and be able to support you with as you plan for your time abroad. Willem, I'm going to hand it back over to you to finish what you started to say.
Yeah, so I think that CEA does a really good job when you first get there of giving you the rundown of where you are, kind of what the customs are, the expectations that you should have and that people probably have of you. And so that made me feel really comfortable from the second I got there. Like within the first week, I had a pretty good idea of how to handle myself in Madrid. But where I saw people in my program have the most problems is those weekend excursions that aren't with CEA or CAPA. And so being sure that you're with people that you can trust and that you know will look out for you and that you're looking out for is something that I can't recommend enough, because when you're in a new place, even just for 2 days, that's when I saw the most problems happen, when people had their wallets stolen or had like run-ins with kind of uncomfortable people. Like that's kind of the biggest issue. And so making sure that you have people to help you through those situations is definitely something I would recommend, and CEA will help you in those situations. If you have questions about like, oh, where do I go? Like if there's anything I can do about my wallet, there's usually not, unfortunately, but they will have those resources available to you, especially in the more dire circumstances. Like Emily mentioned allergic reaction. I knew someone who fell down like a flight of stairs. One person like had another allergic reaction and kind of just flus go around, like colds or flus, and they'll point you in the right direction for how to use your insurance, how to get reimbursed. And luckily in Madrid, they have a pretty good healthcare system. And so you're able to go to the hospital and get easily accessible medication to help most things.
Thank you for sharing that. And it is, these are not the fun things we want to think about with study abroad. We never want these things to happen for anyone, but it is good to know that somebody is there to support you should they happen. And Willem, I actually want to dive a little bit into something that you were talking about with orientation. Of course, helping everyone feel secure in things like health and safety and housing, but also just talking about being in a totally different place, totally new environment. I think this goes back to the second part of the question that was asked, just in terms of not always knowing how to accomplish something and what you do about that. That really reminds me of a lot of the conversations we have about culture shock and just this moment of when you first come abroad, everything is so exciting and new. And then usually you'll hit a point in your term abroad where maybe it feels a little overwhelming, or you're missing home, or you're trying to think about really how to make the most of your time abroad while still reconciling some of those feelings. So I'm just curious to know if anyone wants to touch on this idea of culture shock or of having a moment abroad that you did kind of stop and go, oh man, where do I go from here? Does anyone want to touch on that?
For me, I live in Indianapolis where there's not really a lot of public transportation and you have to drive everywhere. And so living in Buenos Aires, I really had to get used to and get comfortable with taking public transportation. And that was definitely a big change for me just because I'm kind of directionally challenged. So it's kind of tricky to find my way, especially if like your maps on your phone isn't working or you don't have like good Wi-Fi or data on you at that time. So being able to read the signs or asking someone or traveling with someone is really important who knows where you're going or who's familiar with the public transportation system is really important. And in terms of doing something about my hesitance about taking public transportation, figure out where to go, I made sure to download all of the city on my Google Maps and made sure to have it already pulled up and also do some research before I leave. Like, for example, if I'm like in a restaurant and I know like I have to go back to my university, but I don't know how to go back there, I have to make sure that I know exactly how to get back to the university and what paths to take before I leave the spot with the Wi-Fi. And so that was really important, just making sure that you are comfortable with walking a lot, comfortable with getting lost. Sometimes that can be good because you can explore different places, different neighborhoods, or different cafes or stuff. So just being able to be really flexible and take your time with traveling alone.
I love that. Thanks, Faith. Keith, I was not ignoring your question, but I thought it was a great one. As we're starting to come to the end, I got a couple more questions, and one of them is Keith's. What was your favorite memory from your time abroad? I know it's impossible to choose just one.
Gosh, it's so impossible to choose just one. And I hate that this might be my favorite memory and it wasn't even in London, but just like being in Europe, everything is so close to each other. So like I had the opportunity to travel to France and Greece, which was like amazing. Never in my life did I ever think I would be able to do that. And so what was nice is like I had the one internship where the required hours wasn't as much as some of the other internships, maybe like Costa Rica, some of my other friends that were in Barcelona. And so like I had a lot of opportunity to travel on weekends. And even my coworkers were like, are you going to go on a holiday? Like, you know, you're not supposed to come in this day, blah, 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 because, you know, that's a big thing in Europe is them taking those days off for holidays. So honestly, just all of the traveling was amazing. And my experience in Santorini was life-changing. I want to go back so bad.
I love that. I love Santorini too. Thanks, Paige. Who else has a favorite memory from your time abroad that you want to share?
So I had like a 30-minute walk to my class, which actually was not bad at all. Like 30 minutes sounds like a massive amount of time here, but it was a very pretty walk. And I just walked past like this like water area and these trees, and there was like fruit on them, and it was really nice. I got to listen to music and kind of just like, because you know, learning a different language or like immersing yourself in a different language is really fun, but it also takes a lot of brain energy, especially if it's like, you know, constant all the time. But it's really nice to be able to like decompress and walk and see that. And then I would get back to like the area where the market was and then walk through the market and then get back to my apartment. It was really nice. I got to do it like every day while my class was in session, and that was kind of my favorite memory overall.
That's so great. And you two just gave us a great juxtaposition of the thing that we often think of, which is the amazing opportunity to connect and travel while you're abroad, as well as sometimes we overlook some of the really simple things that are super meaningful in getting to know a place and a culture. So I love that. Who else wants to dive in? All right, I'm going to let the other three of you think about it because I can see the wheels turning. It's a very difficult question to think about just one. So feel free to dive in as it comes to you. But that pivots to one of the final questions I have For individuals who are still feeling hesitant about studying abroad, they're trying to decide if it's right for them. They're not sure if it's worth the risk of going and the steps that it takes to get there. What would you say to people who are still on the fence about whether or not they should study abroad?
Go. Yeah. I think, put it simply, there's so much that you learn about yourself, about like how you interact in a new place. There's so many amazing people that you get to meet, so many experiences. Like it's hard to choose just one as a favorite, but I loved being able to walk through Madrid and kind of get a feel for the city where everything was. Walk by the Real Madrid stadium, which was like a 10-minute walk from my house. And so I love going by there. I love traveling with my roommates, with my program. And so there's so much that you get to explore. And it's a great way to just kind of learn a ton. I don't like, it's hard to even put it in a concise way, but there's just go basically.
Thanks, Willem.
You can make it work, obviously.
I would say you are absolutely going to get something out of it between the personal, the professional skills that you're going to get out of it. You know, for me, the biggest setback was money, right? So even though I'm still building up my savings from my experience this summer, it was so worth it. Like the best educational experience I could have ever gotten in college. So just like putting that aside, like, yeah, like as cheesy as it sounds, like money, like it will rebuild itself, but like these memories won't. Like just go for it. And it really, I feel like sets you aside as well from other candidates. It sets you apart, seeing that you experienced going abroad and working in a different environment, you know, a different culture. That's going to look really good on your resume. So.
And Paige, I'm going to put you on the spot. Feel free to tell me if you need to think about it, but I love what you said about the things that you carry forward with you personally and professionally. What do you highlight for students about that? In terms of what you are carrying forward?
Of course. So like I had mentioned before, I had planned on working in a newsroom pretty much all throughout college. And so this summer, I just wanted to do something different. I've been working in a newsroom all 4 years, kind of getting tired of it, I'll be honest. And so I wanted to put myself in a position where I could be challenged, where I could learn more within PR, strategic communication. And like, I found out that I for sure don't want to work in a newsroom anymore. Like after my experience at WePlay, I want to be working in sports marketing and PR and something within, you know, strategic communication. So I really developed a passion for that over the summer. That's completely changed my plans post-graduation. So like, it's never too late to find like what you're really interested in doing. And so like, don't hold yourself back. Like, take those risks, challenge yourself, because you might end up being a lot happier in the future if you do that and just take the chance.
Thank you, Paige. I love that. Faith, can I pass it over to you? Final thoughts about any of this? Favorite memories, what you say to students who are hesitant, what you're carrying forward. I'd love to know your final thoughts.
I couldn't exactly think of a favorite memory, but all of my really memorable experiences were surrounding food and like the restaurants, just because I'm a big foodie and many people love food. So I feel like that was the highlight of my trip, being able to try lots of different foods or get to eat at really cool places. And actually, I became friends with some of the workers at this one restaurant that was near my university, just because I happened to be there almost every day for lunch. So being able to connect with them was pretty cool. And for students who are hesitant about going abroad, like everyone said, like it is an investment, but it really is worthwhile, and you're always going to be left with a meaningful experience. I personally was worried just because as a STEM major, I always feel like there's never enough time for me, or I feel like I don't have enough time to go on this extended trip. But this trip wasn't just about travel, it also was about academics and professional development. And you learn so much, just not about yourself, but also about the culture and how to interact with people. And you kind of get to grow as a person, truly. So I feel like going on a study abroad trip will really change your life. And it's kind of a good push for you as well to figure out, like what Paige said, what you really want to do in your life, and kind of to think about your goals in the future.
I love that. Thank you, Faith. Emily, can I pass to you? Final thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that I have so many great memories from my time studying abroad, but I would say one that like really stands out to me is toward the end of my time abroad in December, my flatmate who lived in the same homestay as me, we, as kind of like a thank you gift, we took our host mom out to see the Nutcracker at like a theater downtown, and then afterward we had dinner, and it was such a great like bonding time and a time to really get to know her. Not that we weren't like getting to know her before, but it was just like time, just the three of us, like kind of like as a family together, hanging out. So that was a really great memory. And I would say if you feel hesitant about studying abroad, I would say, as everyone else has said, I think you should go for it. Because I think you're always going to regret the things that you didn't do when you had the chance to do it. And I would say personally for me, I was also kind of hesitant studying abroad because even though I knew it was something I wanted to do, because I kind of had to put everything kind of on pause for like a whole semester, since the program that I specifically chose had nothing to do with what I was studying at school. But I kind of saw that as an opportunity that allowed me to kind of take a break and reset. And my time abroad has also taught me very invaluable lessons, even though like the classes I took like wasn't for my major, it still gave me lessons such as language skills, photography. So I would say you should definitely go for it. And you're going to meet so many new people and make so many new friends.
Thank you, Emily. Viv, I know you shared a favorite memory, but final thoughts.
Just do it. Reach out with any questions. It's gonna be a lot in like the best way. And yeah, you're gonna make some good memories. I think you can do it no matter what, almost no matter what.
We want to help you do it no matter what. So please reach out if we can help or support. And thank you, Viv, for mentioning. We are going to share this with the folks who are here and the folks who registered who couldn't attend live. But if you have questions, reach out to us. I'm happy to connect you with the panelists that you might have specific questions for. And of course, if there's anything else that we at CEA CAPA can answer for you, let us know. So thank you, everyone. Panelists, thank you so much. I feel like I learned a ton. I know our attendees did as well. I so appreciate your time, and I appreciate everyone being here today. So thank you, everyone. Bye.